Opening hook. You are not lacking time. You are leaking focus. In a world engineered to distract you, your attention is your most valuable currency. Today, we unveil the ancient blueprint for unshakable discipline. Master these Stoic truths, and you won't just reclaim your focus. You will rebuild your life. Listen closely. The noise of the world and the silence of the mind. Imagine the city of Rome in the 1st century AD. It is a metropolis of 1 million people, a sprawling, chaotic epicenter of commerce, politics, and blood. In the heart of this ancient city, living directly above a public bathhouse, sits the Stoic philosopher Seneca. If you have ever complained that your modern environment is too loud, too chaotic, or too distracting for you to focus, consider Seneca's reality. Below his floorboards, men are grunting as they lift heavy lead weights. He hears the slapping of hands against flesh as the masseurs go to work. He hears the water splashing, the brawling of thieves who have been caught stealing clothes, the cries of the sausage vendors, and the loud, echoing conversations of hundreds of Romans going about their daily routines. It is a cacophony of endless, maddening interruption. Yet, in the midst of this deafening chaos, Seneca is writing some of the most profound philosophical letters in human history. How does a man achieve such crystalline focus when the world around him is actively trying to pull his attention away? Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius about this very situation. He stated that the noise didn't bother him, because he had learned to separate the noise of the outside world from the peace of his inner mind. He realized that the ultimate source of distraction is never the environment. It is the mind's reaction to the environment. This brings us to the foundational principles of reclaiming our discipline. In our modern era, the public bathhouse has been replaced by the smartphone in your pocket. The cries of the sausage vendors have been replaced by the ping of a notification. The thieves have been replaced by algorithms designed by neuroscientists to steal the most precious resource you possess, your attention. To rebuild your discipline, you must stop blaming the modern world for your lack of focus and begin fortifying the only thing you truly control. Stoic truth. 1. You suffer more in imagination than in reality, Seneca famously said. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. When we analyze why we lose focus, why we procrastinate, and why our discipline crumbles, we often point to the difficulty of the task. You sit down to write a difficult report, to study for an intense exam, or to begin a complex project, and suddenly you feel an overwhelming urge to check your phone, clean your desk, or stare out the window. Why does this happen? The Stoics understood that we do not flee from the work itself. We flee from our imagined perception of the work. Before you even type the first word or read the first page, your mind projects an image of exhaustion, frustration, and boredom. Your brain registers this imagined suffering as an immediate threat and seeks an escape route. The dopamine hit of a social media feed or a quick distraction is the escape hatch. You lose your focus by 200% because you are fighting a ghost. You are letting your imagination magnify the friction of the task. To increase your focus, you must ground yourself in reality. The Stoic practice here is to strip the task of its emotional weight. Marcus Aurelius called this the stripping away technique. When you look at a task, do not see the hours of toil you imagine it will take. Break it down to its most objective, physical reality. Writing a book is not a monumental mountain of suffering. It is simply pressing keys on a keyboard for 60 minutes. Studying is not a torture session. It is moving your eyes across a page and writing down notes. When you feel your focus drifting, catch your imagination running wild. Ask yourself, what is the actual reality of this present moment? Is this task physically hurting me, or is my mind just whining about the effort? Once you realize that the suffering is entirely fabricated by your own mind, the desire to escape vanishes. You stop running from the work, and you begin the work. This realization alone can double your output, because you stop wasting energy dreading the task and start using that energy to execute it. Stoic truth 2, the dichotomy of control. To step deeper into the anatomy of focus, we must travel from the wealthy estates of Seneca to the chains of Epictetus. Epictetus was born a slave. He lived a life where almost everything, his body, his location, his daily labor, was dictated by a master. He had every right to be the most distracted, miserable, and defeated man in the Roman Empire. Instead, he became one of the greatest teachers of Stoicism, completely liberated in his mind. Epictetus achieved this through a single, razor-sharp philosophy, the dichotomy of control. Some things are in our control and others not, Epictetus taught. In our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever are our own actions. Not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our own actions. Your lack of focus is almost always a result of blurring this exact line. You try to control things outside of your power, and you neglect the things within your power. Consider your daily attempts at discipline. You sit down to do deep, focused work, but your mind is swirling. You are worrying about what your boss thought of your last email. You are stressing about the economy. You are angry about a political news story you saw 20 minutes ago. You are anticipating the traffic on your commute home. None of these things are within your immediate, present moment control. By directing your mental energy toward the uncontrollable, you are draining the battery of your focus. It is mathematically impossible to give 100% of your attention to the task in front of you if 50% of your processing power is occupied by things you cannot change. The Stoic master of focus ruthlessly divides the world into two columns, mine and not mine. When a distraction arises, whether it is a loud noise outside your window, a sudden unannounced deadline, or a toxic co-worker, you must immediately ask, is this within my control? If the answer is no, you must develop the absolute discipline to say, then it is nothing to me. This does not mean you do not care about life. It means you care about your life too much to waste your attention on shadows. When you sever the cord of attachment to external events, all of that lost, scattered energy snaps back to the present moment. Your focus sharpens precisely because it is narrowed. You are no longer trying to hold the whole world in your hands. You are only holding the pen, the tool, or the task directly in front of you. The emperor on the front lines. Fast forward to the year 170 AD. The Roman Empire is at war. The Germanic tribes are pushing against the northern borders, threatening to spill over and destroy Rome. At the head of the Roman legions is the emperor, Marcus Aurelius. He is not in a comfortable palace in Rome. He is in the freezing mud of Carnuntum, near the Danube River. He is surrounded by sickness, death, the smell of blood, and the terrifying responsibility of holding Western civilization together. The stress is unimaginable. The distractions are a matter of life and death. Yet it is here, in the cold light of dawn before the battles begin, that Marcus Aurelius sits alone in his tent and writes to himself. He does not write about military strategy or complain about the cold. He writes to fortify his own mind. These private journals, never meant for publication, would become known as the Meditations. Matteo built an impenetrable fortress inside his own head. He understood that while his physical body was subjected to the chaos of war, his mind, his ruling center, the hegemonicon, could remain untouched. To rebuild your discipline, you must become the emperor of your own mind. You must construct a fortress that the modern world's chaotic, attention-stealing barbarians cannot breach. Stoic truth. Amor fati. Love your fate. One of the greatest, most silent destroyers of focus is not the ping of a notification, but the slow, corrosive poison of resentment. Think about the times you are forced to work on a task you actively dislike. Perhaps it is auditing a massive, disorganized spreadsheet, doing complex taxes, or dealing with an infuriatingly difficult client. You sit at your desk, and a dark, internal monologue begins to loop in your mind. I shouldn't have to do this. This is beneath my skills. I wish I was doing literally anything else. Why does this have to be so painfully hard? This internal friction is the absolute death of discipline. Psychologically, you are pressing the gas pedal and the brake at the exact same time. You are trying to force yourself to move forward and complete the work, but your deep-seated resistance to the reality of the situation is locking the wheels. You are burning massive amounts of mental fuel, yet you're going absolutely nowhere. Your focus is fundamentally split. Half of your brain is trying to do the math or write the email, and the other half is throwing an emotional temper tantrum. The Stoic solution to this massive energy leak is radical. It is not merely about gritting your teeth and tolerating the miserable task. It is about passionately loving it. Centuries later, the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, drawing heavily from these ancient practices, coined the term amor fati, a love of one's fate. It is the absolute, uncompromising refusal to wish that reality was anything other than exactly what it is in this present moment. Marcus Aurelius provided the ultimate metaphor for this mindset. He wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." Think about a tiny, fragile, flickering campfire. If you throw a massive, heavy log onto it, the fire will be smothered and instantly die. But if you build a raging, roaring bonfire, you can throw anything into it. Garbage, wet wood, heavy logs, old furniture, and the fire will simply consume it, burn hotter and roar higher. When you encounter a difficult, mundane, or frustrating task, do not wish for an easier life. Wish to be the blazing fire. Look at the incredibly boring spreadsheet and say, "This is the wood that fuels my discipline." Look at the difficult, demanding client and say, "This is the heavy resistance training that will make my emotional control unbreakable." You must stop seeing difficult tasks as burdens and start seeing them as the precise fuel you need to become a formidable human being. If you want to increase your focus by 200%, you must immediately eliminate the gap between what you are doing and what you wish you were doing. Total focus requires total alignment. When you sit down to work, you must actively choose to love the work, no matter how unglamorous it appears on the surface. You love it not because the work itself is thrilling, but because executing it with absolute excellence is a permanent testament to your own character. The next time you feel the overwhelming urge to complain about the work in front of you, stop. Take a breath. Kill the resentment. Say to yourself aloud, "I choose this. I embrace this. This is the exact challenge I need in this moment to forge my mind." Watch how quickly the urge to check your phone completely disappears when you decide that the obstacle in front of you is a gift you actually want. Stoic Truth 4. Strict with yourself, tolerant with others. A major leak in our daily focus comes from our interactions with other people. You get deep into a flow state, finally tackling the hardest part of your day, and someone interrupts you. A co-worker drops by your desk with a trivial question. Your spouse asks you to do a minor chore. Your phone rings with a telemarketer. Instantly, your focus shatters. But more dangerously, irritation sets in. You snap at the person, your heart rate elevates, and you spend the next 15 minutes fuming about how no one respects your time. The interruption cost you 2 minutes. Your emotional reaction cost you 30. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire of flawed, frustrating people. He wrote, "Begin the morning by saying to yourself, 'I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. I can neither be injured by any of them, for no one can fix on me what is ugly, nor can I be angry with my kinsman, nor hate him.' The Stoic truth for unshakable focus is, be ruthlessly strict with your own boundaries, but infinitely tolerant of the flaws of others. You cannot control whether someone interrupts you, but you absolutely control whether you allow that interruption to poison your mental state. To rebuild your discipline, you must create physical and digital boundaries, noise-cancelling headphones, phone on airplane mode, closed doors. You are strictly defending your fortress. However, when someone inevitably breaches the wall, do not let anger blind you. Anger is the ultimate destroyer of focus. It floods your brain with cortisol and adrenaline, making deep, logical thought impossible. When interrupted, respond with calm detachment. Deal with the intrusion gracefully, firmly redirect the person, and immediately return to your work without dropping a single ounce of emotional energy. Your discipline is too valuable to be hijacked by someone else's lack of awareness. Guard your time like a dragon hoarding gold, but guard your inner peace even more fiercely. The shipwreck that birthed a philosophy. Long before Seneca, Epictetus, or Marcus Aurelius, there was a man named Zeno of Citium. Zeno was a wealthy merchant, sailing across the Mediterranean Sea with a cargo of purple dye, the most valuable commodity in the ancient world. In a single night, a violent storm smashed his ship against the rocks. Zeno survived, but everything he owned went to the bottom of the ocean. He was washed ashore in Athens, a ruined man, stripped of his wealth, his identity, and his life's work. Most men would have lost their minds. They would have wallowed in despair, turned to alcohol, or thrown themselves into the sea. Zeno walked into a bookstore in Athens, picked up a book about the philosopher Socrates, and was so captivated that he asked the bookseller where he could find a man like this. This moment birthed the philosophy we now call Stoicism. Zeno later joked, "I made a prosperous voyage when I suffered shipwreck." True discipline is not built when conditions are perfect. Total focus is not achieved only when you have 8 hours of sleep, a perfect cup of coffee, and absolute silence. True discipline is forged in the crucible of adversity. It is built when you are tired, when the world is chaotic, and when your ship has just wrecked. Stoic Truth 5. Memento mori. Remember you must die. Why do we lose focus so easily? Why do we casually allow ourselves to scroll mindlessly through a social media feed for 3 hours on a random Tuesday evening? Why do we constantly put off building that business, writing that book, or getting into shape until a mystical, imaginary day called tomorrow? We do this because we are suffering from a deeply ingrained, extremely dangerous psychological illusion. We operate under the subconscious belief that we possess an infinite amount of time. Seneca addressed this specific delusion in his brilliant and scathing essay on the shortness of life. In it, he forcefully scolds humanity for a bizarre contradiction in human behavior. People are incredibly stingy with their personal property and their money. If someone tries to steal a single dollar from you or encroaches on your property line by a few inches, you will fight them furiously. Yet when it comes to time, the absolute most precious resource in the universe, and the only one you can literally never get back once it is gone, we freely hand it over to anyone or anything that asks for it. You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire, Seneca wrote. You will hear many people saying, "When I am 50, I shall retire into leisure. When I am 60, I shall give up public duties." And what guarantee do you have that your life will last longer? The fifth Stoic truth, and perhaps the most powerful tool to multiply your focus by 200%, is the dark, sobering, yet immensely liberating practice of memento mori. Remember that you must die. This is not meant to be a morbid or depressing thought. It is meant to be a high-voltage shock to your system. If you want to instantly rebuild your discipline and destroy procrastination, look at the clock on your wall. Realize that it is not merely ticking away the hours of a workday. It is ticking away the very seconds of your actual life. Every single time you allow a cheap distraction to steal an hour of your day, you are bleeding out. You are taking a non-refundable piece of your existence and throwing it into a black hole of useless algorithms, meaningless gossip, or trivial arguments. When you truly internalize your own mortality, procrastination becomes a literal impossibility. You suddenly realize you do not have the luxury of lacking focus. You do not have an endless supply of tomorrows to finally do the deep, meaningful work you were put on this earth to do. To apply this practically, you must completely change how you view your schedule. Start treating your daily calendar not as a tedious list of chores, but as a strict inventory of your remaining lifespan. When you schedule 2 hours for deep, focused work, tell yourself, "I am deliberately trading 2 hours of my limited existence for this exact task. I will not disrespect my own life by spending this sacred time distracted. Let the impending shadow of death become the blinding spotlight of your focus." When you deeply realize just how little time you actually possess, the trivial buzzing distractions of the modern world completely lose their grip on your mind. You focus because you finally understand the stakes. Stoic truth 6. The obstacle is the way. Even with the best intentions, the strongest boundaries, and the deepest awareness of your mortality, your focus will break. You are human. You will sit down to work, and 20 minutes later, you will find yourself staring at your phone without knowing how it got into your hand. When this happens, the amateur gives up. The amateur says, "Well, my focus is broken. The day is ruined. I might as well just relax and try again tomorrow." This creates a vicious cycle of broken discipline and self-loathing. The Stoic does not view the break in focus as a failure. The Stoic views it as a repetition in the gym of the mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Your distraction is the obstacle. Therefore, your distraction must become the way. How? By reframing the moment of distraction. The magic of building unshakable discipline does not happen when you are perfectly focused. The magic happens in the split second you realize you have been distracted, and you make the conscious choice to drag your attention back to the work. Every time your mind wanders and you pull it back, you're doing a mental push-up. If you sit down to work for an hour and your mind wanders 50 times and you pull it back 50 times, you did not fail. You successfully completed 50 repetitions of deep discipline training. Do not beat yourself up when you lose focus. Emotionally punishing yourself only wastes more time and mental energy. Instead, observe the distraction coldly. My mind drifted to the news. Then, firmly and without judgment, redirect the beam of your attention back to the task. When you adopt this mindset, the fear of losing focus disappears. You stop being fragile. If the world distracts you, you use it as an opportunity to practice returning. The obstacle, the distraction, becomes the very tool you use to sharpen your discipline to a razor's edge. By mastering the art of the return, your focus becomes relentless. It does not mean you never fall. It means you bounce back so quickly that the fall no longer matters. The last true Roman. If we want to understand the physical execution of discipline, how to take the mind's fortress and turn it into unstoppable daily action, we must look to a man who literally fought to the death for his principles. We must look to Cato the Younger. Cato was a Roman senator, and he was the absolute embodiment of Stoic endurance. In the 1st century BC, the Roman Republic was crumbling. Julius Caesar was marching his army across the Rubicon, intent on destroying the Republic and crowning himself dictator. Almost everyone in Rome either fled in panic or surrendered to Caesar's overwhelming power. Cato did neither. He led the resistance. Cato marched his men through the blistering, venomous deserts of North Africa to continue the fight against Caesar. The journey was a nightmare of thirst, heat, and exhaustion. During this death march, Cato did not ride on a horse. He walked in the sand alongside his lowest-ranking soldiers. He ate the same terrible food, drank the same rationed water, and refused to wear a hat to shield himself from the brutal African sun. He was fighting a war he was almost certainly going to lose. Caesar had more men, more money, and more momentum. Yet Cato's discipline never wavered for a single second. How could a man remain so intensely focused and driven when the outcome looked so incredibly bleak? He achieved this because he had mastered a critical psychological shift. He did not tie his focus to the guarantee of victory. He tied his focus entirely to the nobility of the action itself. Stoic truth. 7. Detach from the outcome. Obsess over the process. One of the most insidious ways we destroy our own focus is through outcome anxiety. You sit down to start a business, and immediately your mind jumps 10 steps into the future. What if no one buys my product? What if I go bankrupt? What if I look like a failure to my friends? You sit down to study, and you think, what if I fail the test anyway? What if this doesn't guarantee me the job? When your mind is living in the future, it cannot possibly operate in the present. This anxiety paralyzes you. You stare at the blank page or the flashing cursor, and instead of taking action, you open a new tab and start watching a video, seeking relief from the stress of an unwritten future. The Stoics called the desired outcome a preferred indifferent. It is natural to want to win the war, pass the test, or build a successful business. But the outcome is not entirely in your control. The economy could crash, the professor could write an unfairly hard exam, or an algorithm could change. If your discipline depends on a guaranteed reward, your discipline will shatter the moment the reward is threatened. To increase your focus by 200%, You must adopt Cato's mindset. Sever the cord between your action and your desired outcome. Your only job is to draw the bow and aim the arrow perfectly. Whether the wind blows the arrow off course is none of your concern. When you sit down to work, tell yourself, I am not writing this chapter, so it will become a bestseller. I am writing it because the act of writing builds my character. I am not making this sales call because I am guaranteed a commission. I am making it because I am a disciplined professional who does the work. By letting go of the future, all of your mental RAM frees up. The paralyzing anxiety vanishes. You are no longer overwhelmed by the terrifying mountain of the end goal. You are only focused on the single, manageable step right in front of your feet. Obsess over the process. Worship the daily standard. Let the outcome take care of itself. Stoic truth. 8. The power of essentialism. Less is more. We live in the era of the hustle. We are constantly told that to be successful, we must do more. We must have a side hustle, maintain an immaculate social media presence, learn 3 languages, trade cryptocurrency, and network at 3 different events a week. This modern obsession with more is a fast track to profound mediocrity. It fractures your attention into 50 microscopic shards. You are not focused. You are simply frantic. Marcus Aurelius recognized this trap 2,000 years ago. Despite being the emperor of Rome with endless demands on his time, he wrote a brilliant rule for his own life. Most of what we say and do is not essential. If you can eliminate it, you'll have more time and more tranquility. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? True Stoic discipline is not about doing 100 things moderately well. It is about identifying the 3 things that actually matter and ignoring the other 97 with ruthless, unapologetic aggression. Your lack of focus is often a symptom of having too many priorities. When everything is important, nothing is important. If you sit down at your desk with a to-do list of 25 tasks, your brain will naturally seek the path of least resistance. You will spend 2 hours clearing out your inbox, organizing your desktop folders, and designing a nice logo. Tasks that feel like work, but actually accomplish nothing. You will avoid one deep, difficult task that actually moves the needle in your life. To rebuild your discipline, you must become an essentialist. Before you begin your day, look at your task list and ask Marcus Aurelius's question. Is this necessary? If it is not necessary, cut it out. Delegate it, delete it, or delay it indefinitely. Narrow your daily focus down to 1 or 2 monumental tasks. When you give yourself permission to ignore the trivial noise, your ability to focus on the essential signal will skyrocket. The disciplined mind is not a mind that is constantly busy. It is a mind that is fiercely protective of its limited energy, deploying it only where it causes the maximum impact. The wealthiest man in Rome eats stale bread. Let us return to Seneca. In addition to being a brilliant philosopher, Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in the Roman Empire. He was a statesman, a playwright, and an advisor to the Emperor Nero. He possessed estates, fine wines, beautiful furniture, and an army of servants. He had access to every luxury the ancient world could provide. Yet for several days every month, this incredibly wealthy man would leave his comfortable bed, put on the roughest, most uncomfortable clothing he could find, and sleep on the hard stone floor. He would refuse his elaborate meals and eat only stale, dry bread. He would drink nothing but warm water. Why would a man who had everything voluntarily subject himself to poverty and physical misery? Seneca did this as a psychological exercise. He knew that the human animal is quickly corrupted by comfort. When we become accustomed to everything being easy, soft, and convenient, our discipline atrophies like an unused muscle. We become terrified of friction. During these days of voluntary hardship, Seneca would ask himself a simple question. Is this the condition that I feared? He proved to his own mind that he could survive without luxury. He proved that he did not need perfect conditions to function. By artificially injecting hardship into his life, he immunized himself against the fear of losing his wealth, and he hardened his mind for the days when real adversity would inevitably strike. Stoic Truth 9. Voluntary discomfort. If you want to understand why your focus is so easily broken today, look at the physical environment you have built around yourself. You wake up in a climate-controlled room. You take a hot shower. You order food from an app that is delivered directly to your door. If you are bored for even 3 seconds, you pull out a glowing rectangle that streams infinite, hyper-stimulating entertainment directly into your retinas. You have built a life completely devoid of friction. Because your brain has been trained to expect constant comfort and instant dopamine, the moment you sit down to do deep, meaningful work, which requires effort, patience, and delayed gratification, your brain rebels. It screams, "This is too hard. This is boring. Where is my dopamine?" And immediately you lose focus. You cannot maintain intense focus on difficult tasks if your baseline tolerance for discomfort is 0. To increase your focus by 200%, you must adopt the practice of voluntary discomfort. You must deliberately introduce small amounts of friction into your daily routine to callous your mind. You do not need to sleep on a stone floor like Seneca, but you must teach your brain that it is capable of enduring discomfort without seeking an immediate escape. Take a cold shower every morning for 60 seconds. When you feel the freezing water hit your back, your brain will scream at you to step out. Stay in. Breathe through it. You are teaching your mind that you are in control of your impulses, not the other way around. Fast for 16 hours. Work out intensely. Leave your phone in another room for a full weekend. Drive to work in complete silence, without a podcast or music playing, and simply sit with your own thoughts. By practicing voluntary discomfort, you reset your dopamine receptors. You teach your brain to stop panicking at the first sign of boredom or friction. When you master the art of being uncomfortable, doing 2 hours of focused, deep work at your desk suddenly feels incredibly easy. You stop running from the work because your mind has already conquered far worse conditions. Stoic Truth 10. The Evening Review, Prososh. The final key to rebuilding your discipline is the realization that focus is not a one-time event. It is a daily maintenance practice. You cannot expect a car to run indefinitely without ever checking the engine, changing the oil, or evaluating its performance. Yet most people live their entire lives without ever taking a diagnostic look at their own minds. They stumble through their days on autopilot, getting distracted by the same triggers, falling into the same traps, and wondering why their discipline never improves. The Stoics practiced a concept called prososh, which translates to deep, continuous attention to oneself. They anchored this practice in a ruthless, honest evening routine. Epictetus instructed his students never to go to sleep without first asking themselves 3 questions. Well, 1. What did I do wrong today? 2. What did I do right today? 3. What duty is left undone? Seneca echoed this practice. Every night, after his wife had gone to sleep and his house was totally silent, he would examine his entire day. I hide nothing from myself, Seneca wrote. I omit nothing. I evaluate my words and my deeds. Why should I fear any of my mistakes when I can say, see that you do not do this again? If you want to dramatically increase your focus, you must implement the Stoic evening review. Keep a physical journal beside your bed. Do not use an app. Use a pen and paper. The physical act of writing slows down your racing thoughts and forces clarity. Every night, spend exactly 5 minutes auditing your focus for the day. Be brutally honest. Where did you leak time today? Did you spend 45 minutes scrolling on your phone when you were supposed to be studying? Write it down. Acknowledge it. Do not make excuses, but do not stop at the negative. What did you do right? Did you successfully implement the dichotomy of control when a coworker annoyed you? Did you push through an hour of deep work, even when you were tired? Write that down too. Celebrate the victory. Finally, plan the counterattack for tomorrow. If you realized that having your phone on your desk was the primary reason you lost focus today, write down your strategy. Tomorrow, my phone stays in the kitchen while I work. You cannot improve what you do not measure. By auditing your focus every single night, you bring your unconscious habits into the harsh light of awareness. You stop repeating the same mistakes. You tighten the armor. You reinforce the walls of the fortress. Day by day, review by review, your discipline stops being a fragile, fleeting emotion and hardens into an unbreakable iron framework. Discipline is not a talent you are born with. It is a fortress built brick by brick. The Stoics handed you the blueprint. Now, the labor is yours. If these ancient truths sparked a fire in your mind today, do not let it fade. Rebuild your discipline, conquer your distractions, and reclaim your time. Hit the like button to forge your commitment, share this video with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel. The time to act is now.